Hello, AMP2. Let's keep on going. This is the endocrine system. I'm going to talk about this and go through a brief lecture for you so you can have some of this going helping you at home. So if we're talking about the endocrine system, it's going to work with the nervous system to control it's much slower acting than the nervous system. The nervous system is very fast, instantaneous. The endocrine system is going to use chemical messengers. Those chemical messengers are called hormones. Hormones, how do they work? Well, they do the 6 following things. They're going to increase or change plasma membrane permeability. They're going to change the electrical state of the plasma membrane. They're going to cause proteins and enzymes to be made. They're going to activate or not activate enzymes. They're going to stimulate mitosis, and they're going to promote secretory activity. Hormones, the chemical substance that we've talked about, they're released in extracellular fluid that is adjacent to the gland. They're going to then travel to their destination and do what they're supposed to do. They have targeted cells or organs that are highly specific to that hormone, and there are 3 types of hormones. You have your amino acid, which is water soluble. Those include proteins, peptides, and amines. Your steroids, which are your cholesterols, those are fat soluble. They're including your sex hormones and the hormones from the adrenal cortex. And you have your prostaglandins. It's not seen very often. They must be targeting something very close, so they release and target adjacent tissues. Okay? 2 types of hormone action. You've got your direct gene action. That's where only steroid hormones do this. And what happens is the steroid hormones actually diffuse through the plasma membrane without any problem of a targeted cell. Once inside, it targets the nucleus. In the nucleus, it's going to bind with a specific receptor. This now complex hormone plus receptor will bind to your DNA. It causes messenger RNA to transcribe. Once it's translated in the cytoplasm, you now have a new protein. The second hormone action is called non-steroid hormones. They're water soluble. They can't enter targeted cells without help, so they bind to the receptors on the plasma membrane of the specific tissue. The receptor is now activating, causing a domino reaction, activating tons of enzymes. So you've got the hormone plus the receptor plus the G protein that attaches on the inside, activates the G protein. Once the G protein is activated, it's going to activate adenylate cyclase. That's going to turn into ATP, which is the second messenger. Okay? This reaction there is going to catalyze the reaction to make cyclic AMP, in turn finally making a new protein. Okay, make sure you know the difference between positive and negative feedback because both are utilized in hormone action. There's 3 types of endocrine gland stimuli. The first is hormonal. It's the most common. That's where hormones produce hormones. The second type is going to be through the changes in ion concentration and nutrients found in your blood. This is called humoral. This is a negative feedback system. And the one that's very rare you don't happen so much is neural stimuli. That's where nerve fibers cause the release of hormones. The best example of this is your adrenal medulla when it's releasing epinephrine. Okay. The difference between endo and exocrine glands: endocrine, they're ductless, so they have to empty into neighboring blood or lymphatic system. Exocrine empty to body surfaces or to cavities and ducts. Okay, so pituitary gland, it's the size of a pea. It hangs from a stalk, which is of the hypothalamus. It's protected by that portion of the skull called the Turk's saddle. There's two lobes to it. You have the anterior, which is made of endothelial tissue, and you have the posterior, which is made of nervous tissue. Okay. 6 hormones that are found in the anterior pituitary. Okay, growth hormone, prolactin, thyroid hormone, adrenal corticotropic hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, and luteinizing hormone. Okay. Growth hormone and prolactin are going to work on non-endocrine glands. The other 4 are tropic hormones, which are stimulating other organs to secrete their hormones. Okay. These are regulated by negative feedback in a secondary message system. 2 lobes. Start with the anterior first. Growth hormone. It's a metabolic hormone. It targets muscle and long bones, and it gives genetics a run for the money, determining your size. I talked about 3 disorders involving growth hormone: pituitary dwarfism, giganticism, and acromegaly. Make sure you know if it's hyper or hypo secretion and when it occurs. Okay. Prolactin targets the mammary glands. It sustains and stimulates milk production during pregnancy. Prolactin is a positive feedback system. Adrenal corticotropic hormone. It maintains the on and off of the cortex portion of the adrenal gland. It's going to release corticosteroids in regards to stress. Thyroid stimulating hormone influence the growth and how much thyroid gland will release hormone. Hence the name, thyroid stimulating hormone. What do you think its target tissue is? Thyroid. Okay, gonadotropic hormone is going to target the gonads. Okay, you've got follicle stimulating hormone that's going to develop the ovaries and the sperm for women and men. Luteinizing hormone that's going to cause ovulation of an egg and produce testosterone in a man. Posterior pituitary, it's not an endocrine gland, truly, because it's made of nervous tissue. It's not made of endocrine tissue. It doesn't make hormones. It only stores and releases them. It's a storage area for the hypothalamus, and the 2 hormones are oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. Oxytocin, positive feedback during childbirth and nursing. Antidiuretic decreases urine production, so you can increase the volume that's found within your blood. Okay. Hypothalamus produces the oxytocin and antidiuretic and stores it in the posterior pituitary. It's the control center. It determines what is released and not released in the pituitary gland by inhibitory or release stimulations for these hormones. Okay, so keep in mind that it is the control center. Thyroid hormone, you know the shape, where it's found. It's going to have cells, the follicles, which are filled with colloid, which contains the iodine and produces thyroid hormone. Okay? You have cuboidal or squamous cells called follicular cells, and you also have parafollicular cells, which is going to produce the calcitonin, all found in this area. Thyroid hormone, TH, has 2 iodine. Thyroxine, or T4, and T3 contain the number of iodines represented by the name. Okay? TH is the one that gives you the basal metabolic effect, the feeling of being high, having energy all the time. Make sure you know the synthesis of TH, how it goes through the 7 steps. Put it in your own words if necessary, but make sure you know the synthesis. It'll help you out if you keep repeating it. Don't, of course, forget the disorders: goiter, cretinism, Graves' disease, and how they're all related to thyroid. Okay, so calcitonin in relationship to the thyroid gland. It's released by the parafollicular cells. It targets the osteoblasts in bone, causing more calcium into the blood. Osteoclasts, causing more calcium to be released into the blood than stored into the bone. Parathyroid glands, those are found on the thyroid gland. They're evenly distributed on either side. Parathyroid hormone is the #1 regulator of calcium in the blood. Adrenal glands are found on your kidneys. There's 2 portions to it, the medulla and cortex. Steroid hormones that are called corticosteroids that come from the adrenal glands. Mineral corticoids and glucocorticoids come from the medulla. Sex hormones are going to come from the cortex. Okay. 2 components: aldosterone comes from glomerulosa, and cortisol and androgens come from fasciolata, both in the cortex. Okay. Corticosteroids, there's really over 24 made in your body, but you're not having to memorize all 24. The ones you're having to memorize are like the mineral corticoids. Aldosterone, it's found in the outermost region. It regulates mineral content in the blood like sodium and potassium. Their target tissue is kidneys. They release this and the kidneys take it up, bring in more sodium and potassium into the blood, and that's where water will follow if you need fluids to increase in your body. Okay? The rate that this is released is based on the rate of synthesis. Males and females in the sex hormones, they last a lifetime. They're released in very low doses, and they're released in low doses, and when they travel to neighboring tissue, that's when that small dose multiplies and becomes much stronger. And that's why you're shooting up in your butt with testosterone. And it increases, and within a short period of time, you're showing that you've been taking testosterone. The only sex hormone that does not last a lifetime is estrogen. Glucocorticoids, that's going to also influence energy metabolism. It also helps resist stressors. The names of those glucocorticoids is cortisone and cortisol. Okay? And it helps fight inflammation, and it helps work with glucose synthesis. The hormones from the medulla are going to produce nervous tissue. Okay? They come from the sympathetic nervous system. There are 2 catecholamines that are going to dump these hormones, these 2 hormones, directly into blood, so it reacts very fast. That's epinephrine and norepinephrine. Okay? You know the fight or flight, bad stressor, body needs some help, epinephrine is given to you. Okay, so glucose is going to increase, heart rate's going to increase, blood pressure is going to decrease, digestion, decrease excretion, so you can, fight the situation. So catecholamines are going to be your alarm stage or your fight or flight in a situation. Glucocorticoids, like cortisol, are going to be in your resistance stage in a stress response. If you're in a stressful situation, this has to last a little bit longer. Okay? Again, disorders, Addison's, Cushing's, and androgens. Just make sure you look at them. Pancreas, okay, is going to have both endocrine and non-endocrine gland cells. The ones we're going to deal with for this chapter are going to be your endocrine cells, the islets of Langerhans, very small masses. In these small masses, they're going to contain alpha and beta cells. The alpha cells are going to make glucagon, and the beta cells are going to make your insulin. Okay? They make what's necessary in a fasting or fed state. Insulin lowers glucose levels by increasing membrane transport of glucose, stopping the breakdown of glycogen, and inhibiting the conversion of amino acid and fats into glucose. Okay. Alpha cells are antagonists to insulin, very strong hyperglycemic agent. One of these released can affect 100 million glucose to be put into the blood. Its target is the liver. In the liver, it causes glycogen and glucose breakdown. The liver cells release glucose to blood. The glucose can be synthesized from lactic acid. Okay. Disorders, again, diabetes is the biggest one with a lot of side effects. Make sure you understand diabetes. Pineal gland, it's the hormone that gives you melatonin for sleep, your day-night cycle. Make sure you understand that it can be fixed or changed if you go on to like night shift work, but it's the one that works pretty well. Until you get older, then you start to need help with your sleep. Thymus is involved with T lymphocyte development, immune responses. The hormone that's released is called thymosin. Okay. This gland is larger at birth, and as you age, actually becomes smaller. Sex hormones are there to complement what's released in the adrenal gland, and these sex hormones are going to be released from the gonads. So you got estrogen and progesterone. In the woman, the estrogen is for secondary sex characteristics, progesterone to prevent shredding and get you ready for lactation, possible breast development, menstrual cycle. In the man, testosterone is for sperm production and, of course, secondary sex characteristics and temperament. Placenta, it's a temporary endocrine gland. Its role is to excrete and deliver nutrients and oxygen to the baby. Hormones that are released from here are going to sustain the pregnancy. So early in the pregnancy, okay, the placenta is going to release human chorionic gonadotropic hormone. That's when you are urinating on a stick and you can tell if you're pregnant. That's what hormone is being tested for. So that's early in the pregnancy. Third month, estrogen and progesterone are increased production because of the placenta. And then towards the end of the pregnancy, the placenta is going to give you relaxin. Relaxin is going to be there to help relax all the ligaments and tendons surrounding the area of the birth canal. It's going to help open the area of your hips to ensure that you can give birth. So it's getting everything nice and big and large for pregnancy. The last thing I have on there is aging. Aging in the endocrine system. Everything works except for estrogen. It works. Does it work as well? No, it doesn't. Things get bad as you get older. They don't work as well. And the endocrine system is no different. So with aging, you're having more and more difficulties that you didn't have before. Okay? Hope it helped. See you in class.